Hello, this is a message to the 19,800 people who can vote in the forthcoming by-election in Colinton, Fairmilehead and Oxgangs. It's also a message to anyone in Scotland who's interested in the seed of a new form of democratic representation germinating in this corner of Scotland. So, my name is Marc Wilkinson, and I'm standing with Edinburgh's newest political party, Edinburgh People. All the members are from Edinburgh, and the purpose of the party is to represent the interests of the people of Edinburgh first and foremost. So far, I've spoken to around 400 people on the doorstep, and the feedback has been very, very positive, which is why I'm doing this video in the hope that I can reach the other 19,000 plus people and inspire them with the opportunity that lies ahead. Firstly, if I could just explain a really quick nuance about tactical voting in a by-election, which only has one councillor to be chosen. And what that is that anyone who is thinking of voting Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem or SNP, because I'm highly unlikely to get more votes than any of those four candidates. If you like supporting our plan, then what you can do is you can put me down as your first preference, in the knowledge that when I get kicked out of the calculation, your vote for me will automatically transferred to your second preference, which could be, for example, the Lib Dem candidate. So they will benefit from your vote regardless. And what you can do at the same time is send a message by putting me down as your first preference. You can send a message to the four main political parties that they need to get their democratic house in order, because there is a new form of political democratic representation which is coming to pull the rugs from under their feet. So that's the first thing. In terms of on the doorstep, the key thing is that what Edinburgh People is about turning politics on its head. The first thing is I've identified the flaw in the current system of politics. You can be the judge of that in a moment. Secondly, I've identified a potential solution. And if this solution becomes a winner, then my prediction is that in 15 years' time, elections in Edinburgh will be contested between 4 or 5 different local parties. And finally, there's an incredible opportunity which lies ahead in the Scottish Parliament elections, which is unique in the whole world, which means that this idea can become fruitful within the next 18 months. So I'll run through these three things quickly. Firstly, the flaw with the current system is that the parties are all far too large, and they are controlling far too many thousands of people. And they're doing this with a top-down control structure, which is becoming more and more autocratic over time, okay? Now, that's evidenced by the fact that within a month of the general election, the Labour Party suspended 7 MPs for voting against the whip. Now, that's the largest number of MPs ever to be suspended at once. So it's never been this bad. So that's the problem. The parties are too large and they're using a top-down autocratic control system. So our solution is to have small parties instead of large parties. So we've founded Edinburgh People. And then instead of having a top-down control structure, we have a bottom-up control structure where all the power resides with the members. So it's the members that choose and vote to select, for example, myself as a candidate. And then when it comes to being elected as a councillor, as I've put on my leaflet, elect me and you will be my boss. I will take instruction on how I should vote in the City Chambers from the majority of the members of Edinburgh People from within the ward. So that's the solution, to have small parties with a bottom-up control structure. Now, the opportunity that resides in the Scottish Parliament elections is that they are unique elections in the whole world, to my knowledge. Normally, with an election, it's one person, one vote. However, with the Scottish Parliament elections, it's one person, 2 votes. And yes, you get to select up to two MSPs with your 2 votes. The first one is a first past the post elected named individual who is going to represent you directly in your constituency, okay? And when people go to the polling booth, 80% of what they're doing, to my mind, is choosing who that named MSP is going to be. So, for example, if they choose, for argument's sake, the Lib Dem candidate, and then what you have is you've got the list where you can select the numbers, and more often than not, the person will then just put number 1 as the first preference for the Lib Dem, and number 2 might be the Greens, etc. Right? So why is this important? Well, I've spotted the opportunity. I've been in marketing for over 3 decades. And what I do know is that if you try and change people's behaviour too much, then you'll change nothing at all. However, if you try and change people's behaviour a little, then you can actually change quite a lot. So at the moment, the feedback from the people I've spoken to so far is that I'm on target to get more votes than the Green Party if I can roll out the awareness across the whole ward, okay? Which is why I need people to share this video with everyone they know in the ward, or with anyone who may know somebody in the ward. So I want to use the achievement in this by-election as a springboard to prepare for the Scottish Parliament elections, and to prepare for this opportunity. So the name of the party will be changed to Edinburgh and Lothian's People, and that way, and we'll register it with the Electoral Commission, and that way we'll have a list of candidates for the Lothian region. And then I want to inspire the creation of a further 7 regional political parties, for which I just need 3 office bearers per region, per party. And we'll have South Scotland People, North East Scotland People, Highlands and Islands People, etc. Okay? And the plan is, for the Scottish Parliament elections, is to have 3 candidates per list, per party, per region. And we will then have a very, very appealing message to the people of Scotland, which is that they have 8 new political parties that they can vote for on the list system, right? But we will be happy for them to continue voting how they've always voted for their constituency MSP. So if they've always voted Labour or always voted SNP, etc., then they can carry on doing that, which is 80% of what they're doing when they go to the polling booth in any case. So we're not going to change that. We're not going to try and change that. And this is the opportunity. This is the clincher. Because what we're going to say to them is that if they like the idea of voting how they've always voted, but that they also like the idea of electing 8 members of the general public to Holyrood Parliament as MSPs who will be free to scream and shout about whatever they want to scream and shout about without the fear of any reprisals from a top-down autocratic party that may destroy their career or suspend them from the party. And more importantly, these 8 MSPs will be able to scream and shout about precisely what their local members of their local party want them to scream and shout about. What is not to like? And this is the clincher, that I've not been able to find anyone who doesn't like the idea of having 8 members of the general public in Holyrood able to question the legislation and to question the government and question in a way that the other MSPs are not able to, because they are to a degree compromised by wanting to naturally and understandably protect their careers and their livelihoods. So that's the opportunity, and we only need 6% of Scotland to like the idea of being able to, on the one hand, vote how they've always voted for their constituency MSP, but also have the best of both worlds and elect members of the general public to Holyrood. So I'll be campaigning and hoping that the members of Edinburgh and Lothians people will select me to be number 1 on the list for the Lothian region, yeah? At which point, as per this plan, I will become an MSP for the Lothian region in May 2026. Now, my prediction is that within 2 months of that, 1,000, maybe more, people will join Edinburgh and Lothians people. A lot of the people who will have voted for us, but also people who will want to be able to influence how I vote in Holyrood can join the party. And the next stage of the plan is 12 months later, in May 2027, we have the full council elections. So we have 2.5 years to grow the awareness of our new party, which will, a lot of which will be achieved through campaigning for the Scottish Parliament elections. And all that we require in May 2027 is to come third in all 17 wards in Edinburgh. And we will then have 17 councillors. And because we will have taken those 17 seats away from the other 5 parties, then we will almost certainly be the largest party in the city chambers in May 2027. And we will have the opportunity of forming the next administration in coalition with 1 or 2 of the other parties. So that's it in a nutshell. So the key thing is share this video as widely as you can with your neighbours in the ward, And just remember that you can put me as number one, first preference, and for argument's sake, Lib Dem as number two, because voting Lib Dem is another protest vote as well. You know, if you're protesting against what the SNP have achieved, you know, what Labour have achieved and what Conservatives have achieved, Lib Dem is a pretty good protest vote. So you can do two protest votes. One, to support the seed that is germinating in only this corner of Scotland on the 14th of November. Vote Marc Wilkinson and really consider joining Edinburgh People, which, by the way, there's no membership fees for, just voluntary membership fees. Thank you very much for listening.